Hey everyone, you are listening to another episode of the All Things Private Practice podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Casale. I'm joined today by Kelley Stevens. She's an LMFT in California, and most of you probably know her on Instagram as the Private Practice Pro. And we are going to talk a lot about imposter syndrome, self-doubt, perfectionism. I know lots of conversations around that recently. And I want to highlight this perspective from someone who has created a really large following on social media because I think we don't always see the behind the scenes with mental health entrepreneurs and what goes into it. And even with successful ventures and audiences, the imposter syndrome still exists. So thank you so much for coming on, Kelley. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of yours. And I always say, like, I feel like I know you because I watch all of your content.
Isn't that
uh,
a weird dynamic now to like, there's so many people who listen to people like ourselves and we've
yeah,
never met them. And it's interesting when people think they know you, but you've never actually met them.
I know. I definitely have had that phenomenon. So I'm a big fan of yours. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to kind of get into all of this.
Yeah. So you have a successful practice, you have a successful side. Well, I don't want to use the word side hustle because that would be minimizing what you've created. You've created some really cool stuff. I mean, you have a large following and it's taken a lot of work, a lot of energy. And I'm sure there's been self doubt, insecurity, and imposter syndrome along the way. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your story and just how you've kind of gotten to this place where you just launched a podcast. Congrats on that as well. And
Yeah, you're going to be a guest on mine soon. So I'm excited about that too.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Obviously, I feel like just like anyone else, self doubt plays a huge part in everything. And especially as I've kind of launched into the online marketing world, so different than just being a solo therapist in my office for a bunch of years. Um, so it's definitely caused me to, I think we were talking about this off camera, but just like being on camera, even and having to show up and trying to figure out how to show up as yourself while still, you know, teaching people things, selling products, all of that, and feeling authentic and also not being afraid. It's a challenge, you know?
It's hard. And I think there's I myself am not a huge fan of making a ton of like social media videos. My written content I always really enjoy and I feel really
Yeah.
creative with. So I have to balance that of like have to make videos and I feel so uncomfortable doing it. And how do I do that and include a hook and a call to action and not feel like I feel like I don't know, like fake or robotic. So it's a challenge, especially as you start to develop an audience.
Hmm.
I've noticed like the imposter syndrome kicks in the bigger the audience gets because
Oh, yeah.
it's just leaving you more open for feedback and criticism too.
Oh my gosh. At this point, I get a negative comment, post, reel, message, whatever, at least once a day. Often more than that. And people can be mean. I mean, it's not, it's one thing when somebody gets into like kind of spirited debate on my page. It's a whole nother thing when someone's like says something like, you look like X, Y, or Z, or says something just totally off base. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's easier to deal with because you're just like, oh, I hope they're having an okay day.
Sure.
But yeah, the bigger your audience grows, certainly I've had to kind of like stop paying attention to it in a way. Because if I really like try to quantify the size, I'm at about like 45,000 or something. And if I think about how many people that actually is, I start to get like a little bit nervous or very nervous. And so I feel like my like big trick with talking to people online is just when I create content, I try to really visualize therapists who are just starting out in private practice, who are terrified, who maybe they have kids, maybe they have rent to pay, they're, have some student loans, and they really want some hope and guidance on how to launch a business. And I try to like visualize that person and then talk to them. Because if I visualize my whole audience size and the internet and Instagram and trolls and all of that, I get too scared to do it,
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
That's a great point, and that's a great strategy for those of you listening because for those of you who want to get into the social media space and content creation space, you do have to kind of break it down like that because you are creating for a reason, right? And you and I have both created our own businesses. I don't know about you, But when I left my community mental health job, I was that person. Like,
Yeah, me
I
too.
was fearful and anxious, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was using like whatever lists I found on whatever Facebook
Mhm.
groups at the time. And I was looking through the list of like, okay, get an MPI. What the fuck is that? Okay, get an
Yeah,
EIN. What is that? Uh, Business bank account. Everything becomes so overwhelming when you don't know what you don't know.
right.
And that's why I think what you're doing and other folks in the space are like giving really tangible, accessible, like bite-sized chunks of information that you can
Yeah,
go and implement today. And it
right.
alleviates so much stress when you can just check it off the list.
Oh my gosh, I think about this all the time with like with my courses and different products. Like I am really visual. I like a nice graphic, and I like a roadmap or whatever. And I want to be able to check it off. And that was the most frustrating thing, not only about building my private practice, but also about building an online business. In both of the business ventures that I've been in, I've always wanted someone just to hand me a list. And
Right.
I'm great at working a list. The hardest freaking part is figuring out the list, And so I think that that's where a lot of the imposter syndromes comes in, because I think a lot of times there's some gatekeeping that happens too, where you're asking someone like, how do I open a private practice, or how do I build an Instagram following? And people will be like, oh, it's so hard. I can't even explain it, And you're like, no, 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 like I actually need you to explain it. Like give me some steps, or at least give me the first couple steps. And that's hard too.
It's hard to put yourself out there and ask for guidance and support and be met with resistance
Mhm.
or just the complete unwillingness to offer a tip or two. And I don't mean like, well, I want to be strategic in how I say this because now I'm thinking of like how many people DM me on Facebook a day asking how to do things and how often I'm like, oh my God, leave me alone. But like, I think that when you're saying there's a lot of gatekeeping in this, right? Like in our profession,
Yeah.
there is this still some fearfulness, like possessiveness of like, don't encroach on my space because like those are my clients, or if you're here too, less clients to contact me, right? Like,
Right.
I don't want to go down the abundance versus scarcity mentality
Right.
mindset, but like, I do think that a lot of mental health professionals really struggle with that because we didn't, for the most part, have business training. We don't have a good understanding of the marketing and the networking and the content creation
Right.
and all of the things that we didn't get taught in grad school.
Right.
And then it becomes a very scary, anxiety provoking process.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about when I built my first private practice, I didn't have you. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't have someone who was out there, whether it's you or me or some of the other great creators in this space. Like I didn't have that. And most of us didn't, who've been established in practice for a while. And so when I say there's gatekeeping, I mean more like if you're sitting face to face with somebody and you're good friends and you say, what do I do? Sometimes people are hesitant to share because they've had to work so hard to get that information and they don't want to, whatever. But I have the same problem with you where people send me DMs. Like I don't have time. But that's different. I think about a lot of times like there you put out, I put out so much free content. And I
Yep.
get a lot of people who will be like, where was your post on this thing? And I'm like, I'm not going to scroll back in my feed like 200 posts. Like you can do that. That's totally different than like sitting across from somebody at a cup of coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're spot on. And I think you see that a lot with like things like, oh, can anyone share a progress note template? Can anyone
Yeah.
share this? And then it's like, no, I've worked really hard on that. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have to go do your own. I don't care. Like
Right.
I have it all in my files section in my Facebook group. Like, just take it because like
Right.
why prevent someone from moving into this space when you know that's just going to allow for them to help more people in their community. We're going to have better quality mental health candidates out there. We're going to
Yeah.
have less burnout if we can all support each other and work through that together as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's such a huge, huge need for mental health services. I know, like, for example, where I live, my husband is a psychiatrist. His waiting list is so long. I mean, it's like it's impossible to get in with somebody. And I think like that's a huge part of it is like, we have to be afraid not to compete with each other. And so many of the best, most successful private practice therapists that I know are also the ones that support other people's businesses,
Well, you have
you
to
know?
think about it, right? Like, one, I want to say we have psychiatric providers at our group practice, and oh my god, the wait list and the
It's nuts.
supply and demand of psychiatric providers, it's just it's wild.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but you're right. I mean, those who are willing to build their businesses relationally, I think are going to do a lot better off in the long run because it comes back around. I believe that 100%. So I haven't done one-on-one coaching since I had throat surgery in October, and I
Mhm.
don't think I will go back to it. And just being able to refer out for one-on-one coaching constantly instead of
Right.
being like, no, these are my clients. Like
Right.
they're coming to me. But if we can all be successful and we can build each other up and have reciprocal win-win relationships, it feels so much more fulfilling to me in the long run. And that means that everyone is winning simultaneously.
100%. And often I find that it means that we actually get better fitting clients that come back to us when we refer out,
Yeah.
and that's like the most interesting part. When we hoard clients and we, take on clients who are not a good fit because we're taking on every phone call, we end up with practices that might not really be in our niche. But then, when we're able to say, like, you know what, this person would be way better and let me connect you with them, it's like you expand your circle and you get referrals back typically that are better fit for you anyway, you know?
Yeah. And I think that a lot of clinicians are fearful to refer out at first. I know that we are completely diverging from the topic, which is my
We all
brain.
knew that was going to happen,
It
right?
was it was inevitable. And when you like, if you can refer your clients out, right,
Mhm.
to the best fit possible for them, because it's not a good fit for you, or it's not a good fit for them, or vice versa, whatever.
Right.
You don't know when that client is going to be in the community and say, Kelley gave me a referral, even though she couldn't
Yeah.
work with me for a whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think that word of mouth and that willingness to always try to find the right landing spot for someone goes
Mhm.
so far in terms of what we can do in terms of practice growth. Because, like, I think newer therapists, especially, and I was this way at first, like, are very anxious about taking every client that calls you, right? Like, I
Mhm.
need to make money, obviously.
Right.
And if I don't take this client, nobody's ever going to call me again, which is
Right.
imposter syndrome bullshit.
Right.
And I think you start to take on people that are just not good fits for whatever reason. And then ultimately you get resentful with yourself, you get
Right.
burnt out. And I think there's a lot of anxiety upon initial consult call or message about referring out. And I want to, like, if we were to turn it around from the other perspective, the client does not care. They just want to find the person who is going to work with them. So
Right.
it's way less about you and
Right.
your experience about referring someone out and much more about the client's experience of just finding the right provider.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think you're right that you become a community resource. So a client calls you and, they're looking for a good fit. You really help them find that good fit. And then maybe when they're looking for a therapist for their teenager and you see teenagers, they end up, I'm always shocked by how many calls back I end up getting a few months or even a few years later.
Oh
It's
yeah.
wild.
I've had client, I haven't seen a clinical client actually in almost a year and a half, but I remember having clients call me and say, I've had your business card in my wallet for 3 years. I don't
Yeah.
know when someone's going to be ready to pick up the phone.
100%. You never know. I mean, it's always surprising when, people come back around, or I've had teens where like maybe I saw them twice as a teenager and they were, like, I'm never coming back. And then 5 years later end up seeing them and they're in college and they're like, I remembered that like you were totally okay with me not wanting to come. And here I am 5 years later, so I think you're totally right.
And it
I
could just be that one conversation that, is impactful and you're remembered down the road. And
Yeah.
that's where I think imposter syndrome for newer clinicians shows up, though, is in client interaction too.
Yeah.
Like, if we're unwilling to understand how to niche and how to really understand who we are passionate about working with, but who we also don't enjoy working with,
Yeah.
I think they're equally as important. And I think that then you have these clinical interactions where you're just missing the mark, like you're just missing each other.
Mhm.
And the client ghosts you or no shows or cancels or stops coming. And your initial thought is like, I'm the worst fucking therapist on planet
Oh,
Earth.
yeah.
I clearly cannot make it as a business owner. So I may
Right.
as well pack it up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, 100%, like, for instance, I don't work with couples. Like, I'm very clear on the fact that couples are not my area of expertise. I really believe that a couples therapist who's not well trained can do more harm than good, and I think it's a really important specialty to get a lot of extra training in. And if I tried to open entire practice right now with couples, I would fail because it's not the client that is going to work best with me. And, they're not going to go out into the community and say, "Oh my gosh, Kelley helped me so much and let me refer you to my friend," and all of this stuff. And I agree with you. I think it's almost more important to know who you don't work well with than who you do.
Yeah.
And it all, yeah, I mean, it all leads into the imposter syndrome and of like doubting ourselves and doubting that there are going to be clients that are a good fit, you know?
It's interesting once you start to realize though that once you have a good understanding of the types of clients you enjoy working with, and it's more about it's much more about diagnosis and much more about like characteristics, pain points, and traits and lived
Yeah.
experiences. And then starting to say, like, ooh, that session flew by. I didn't even look at the clock and it's already
Yeah.
50 minutes in. Versus
Right.
the one where you're like watching out of your peripheral and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can't do this. And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of newer clinicians, especially, there's a lot of shamefulness that comes up around niching and figuring out who your ideal client is too. And it's almost as if like I know we are almost conditioned to take everyone who calls us from grad school and community mental health jobs, but it really is doing a disservice to the client and to the
Yeah.
provider. And it does lead to a lot of self-doubt, insecurity, and imposter syndrome
Mhm.
because you're constantly questioning your competency as a provider when you're just not when you can't build rapport or it's just not there.
Oh, 100%. I think and I think you're right that like in community mental health settings, especially, oftentimes we do have to see whoever is assigned to us. And so we get used to that. Like, well, I could try to make this work. And I think that's the benefit of private practice is you don't have to try to make it work, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a major benefit and being able to have autonomy, like just the freedom to make your own choices. And that could be about anything. It could be about the chair in your office. It could be about the hours you work, the temperature of the room, like the clients you see, the everything feels so much more aligned when
Yeah.
you really have a good understanding of that in general.
Yeah, it's so much more personal to you? And I mean, that's the best. The autonomy and the freedom is my absolute favorite part. And I also think the freedom to choose the direction of your career.
Yeah.
I mean, if I just look at your career or my career, and whether it's you hosting retreats or building courses or, in private practice, you have this ability to shift as your life shifts, which I think is really nice too?
Do you ever think when did you start your practice and all that? Just the
My
date.
private practice or private practice pro?
Your private practice.
So I started working in a group, um, oh gosh, in 2013.
Okay.
And then I left that group in 2015 to start my own office.
When you were leaving in 2015, what's going through your head at that time? What kind of narratives?
Oh my God. It's funny because so I had kind of an interesting role in the group I worked in for a long time where I have always historically worked with teens who often want to come in the afternoon, right? And so in the morning, I did the marketing for the group. And so I was the marketing director for their intensive outpatient program and partial hospitalization program, which essentially involved taking other therapists to breakfast and lunch every day. Like that's
Right.
basically what I did every day. And then I would see my clients in the evening. So I walked into private practice with a spreadsheet of, 2 or 300 other therapists who I personally knew from 5 years of working in marketing for another group. And I mean, you would think like I had a roster of people that knew me, but I was still so afraid. And I had just purchased a condo like a month before, which probably was really stupid timing on my part, to be honest with you. But I was like, and my mortgage was not more than I could afford, but it was a big nut to crack at that point. And I was just like, I just got to make it to month 2 in paying my mortgage. Like I like I was so scared and I had a lot of resources and I was still so I mean resources meaning contacts, Um I feel like I the advice I give is not always the advice that I took. So, I didn't like save up a huge nest egg. I bought a condo and like was mortgage, driven. So it wasn't like I had this big 6-month plan before I did it. But I knew I was ready to work for myself. I was just like, I can't keep doing this. And so made the jump, but I was so scared. What about you? Were you scared?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was unbelievably afraid. And I just like you, a lot of my advice now is from mistakes that I've made. And I
Yeah.
probably don't know if I always would recommend doing things the way I did back then.
Yeah.
I was in community mental health for a couple of years as a program supervisor and hated middle management because you just could never fight enough for your staff who were doing the work, and you could never please the administration. And I just
Yeah.
could not stand it. And
Yeah.
when I left, I had like 15 clients at night that I was leaving my agency job and then going to see, and I was exhausted. But I always remember feeling like super rejuvenated there because it was my space.
Mhm.
And then I quit. I put a 90-day notice in. I thought that was what they deserved.
Right.
And they replaced me in 2 days. And I basically had to like twiddle my thumbs in my office for 60 days before I was just like, all right, I'm leaving this place. And
What's so funny is I did the exact same thing. I gave 3 months notice and I was like, why did I do it was a horrible idea to give 3 months notice.
I
But at
think
the
that's one of
time
the
you feel so
toughest.
loyal.
Exactly, though. Like the loyalty kicks in. And
Yeah.
my narrative was like, I'm a program supervisor. They
Right.
are going to need me to be here to help
Right.
like transition, and the staff is going to need support. They did not care. It was a
Right.
2-day event. And it was like,
Right.
well, all right, what do I do now? But, I think there is this imposter syndrome that comes up when we're putting notice in because it's like you're leaving security, you're
Yeah.
leaving quote unquote safety, although, we could debate that. And
Right.
ultimately, you can convince yourself like, no one I've ever talked to in any capacity who started their own practice has any regrets for the most part. They would say, I wish I would have done it sooner. And
Oh,
I think we convince ourselves like, okay, in a year, in a month, when I have more training, when I do more hours, once I finally reach stage 5 burnout at the agency job,
right.
then I can leave. Like, and we just hold ourselves back and we create these narratives that are not rational. And, when I left, I was feeling really confident. And then 15 of those clients, I had 10 of them moved out of state or went back to college or left town. And I now was left with 5 clients. And I was like,
Right.
oh shit. Like, what did I just do to myself? But I have absolutely no regrets. And I do remember like going through and having negative clinical interaction where it just wasn't a good fit,
Right.
going to supervision and saying, I'm the worst therapist in the world. Like, clearly, I don't know what I'm doing. And major imposter syndrome moment for me was early on. I had no cancellation policy in place. And I
Mhm.
had 3 back to back to back no shows one night. And I was just sitting in
Oh,
my office out of money and just
right.
like, this is my fault. I don't have a policy to enforce. I didn't feel confident or comfortable talking about the policy. I clearly do not know how to be a business owner, and this is not going to work. And now I have to figure out, okay, do I go back to the agency? Do I go back to bartending? And I was like, okay, calm down. Just create a policy and have
Right.
all of your clients sign it and go over and get comfortable talking about it. And
Mhm.
that was pivotal for me because it was like, I think so many of us get caught up in those moments where it's almost like a chain reaction emotionally, and you can really make impulsive decisions that can be quite impactful if you follow through with what's happening for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you followed that feeling and you just decided, okay, I'm done, would be a really different outcome than being like, okay, what's the next right step? Create the policy, you
Yeah,
know?
create the
Yeah.
policy, go over the policy, like talk about the policy so you feel more comfortable, like, and then everything falls into place. And
Right.
it's just wild because that was, I don't know, 5 years ago now. And I don't know about you, but for me and for most people I interview, coming out of grad school, my goal was community mental health. That's the end point. Then it was private practice. That was the finish line.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, this career allows you to evolve and adapt and change, and your interests change. And there are so many pathways that you can follow with these skill sets that are so applicable to our profession.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing now when I graduated. I mean, I loved working with adults with severe and persistent mental illness in hospital-based settings. That was like I never thought that I would be creating Instagram content, online courses, workbooks, teaching therapists, working at graduate level classes. Like I just had I mean, it was like nothing else. But I think that's the nice thing as your career evolves, as your life evolves. I have a family now. I had to I loved working clinically one on one for a lot of years, but trading my time for my money meant also trading my time with my son for money. And so as my life has evolved, I've had to also evolve my career as well.
And that's beautifully said. And I think for those of you listening, if you're on the starting point, for some of you, private practice ownership might be the finish line, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
And some of you might go on to create podcasts and courses and coaching programs and retreats and teaching and speaking engagements. The sky is the limit. I mean, and I think imposter syndrome and self doubt often keep us from trying or creating or taking those risks because it's a lot easier to say that idea is better suited for somebody else than it is for me. And
Oh, 100%. And that doesn't end.
uh,
I think about just I faced a ton of imposter syndrome the first time I opened my private practice. I had to move that practice twice because of my husband's job, which moving a practice pre-pandemic before telehealth was a whole thing. And then launching this with Private Practice Pro, I had a whole other realm of imposter syndrome. I got pretty comfy running a private practice. After a while, you know what your cancellation policy is and you know what to say to the parent of the teenager generally. I mean, not that you get jaded, but you've worked with a ton of clients. And then to launch into a new business being online, I didn't know all these little things that you relearn. But for me, I like that part. I like the newness. I like the trying to figure out the system. And I missed feeling a little uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
makes perfect sense. I think that discomfort can be such a catalyst for
Mhm.
pushing yourself too.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's a good reminder, like when you started your agency job or your grad school program. To those of you listening, probably you probably thought I'm in over my head. I don't know
Oh,
what
yeah, I was so nervous. Like,
Yeah,
my
I never
first
thought
day
I
of
was gonna pass
practicum, oh
research
my gosh,
methods.
so nervous.
And then you figure it out and it feels pretty easy. And then your agency job is like clockwork. And then your private practice, you get the marketing down, you get your flow
Right.
down, you get your rhythm down for how you're going to take sick time. Like then maybe you decide you want a new challenge or you want to try something different. And again, that feeling comes up. But I think each little decision and action where you're moving towards taking a risk allows you to strengthen the foundation and your ability to be resilient in the entrepreneurial journey because it's a bumpy road at times.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it is a bumpy road. I even think both of my parents were entrepreneurs growing up in totally different fields. And my dad is just now this year retiring. He's 78. And I was asking him about retirement, and he said to me, he was like, I'm ready to retire, not because I want to stop working, but because I want to stop assuming some risk. Like I'm 78. I have he sells products and he's like, I have some product liability insurance and I don't want some big claim right before retirement. And I thought it was so interesting. Like he's had a very successful career and yet at the very end, there's still risk. There's still that I don't know if it's going to work out. And I think that's so much like the journey of an entrepreneur is like you just get better at tolerating the risk. I don't see it in him. Like he's golfing, like he seems really relaxed. Like he doesn't seem very stressed. But then when I actually ask him about it, he is, but he's gotten really good at tolerating it. Whereas I make an investment in an online course or I pay for a new camera or something. And I'm like, oh my God, did I spend too much money? I don't know. And so hopefully I get better at it too, you know.
It sounds like you are. I mean, I think if you
Like,
move from working for someone else to working for yourself, that's a ton of risk in itself. And
Oh,
each time you make that next decision, it's more risk. But like you said about your dad and about yourself, about whoever's doing the thing, like I like to think about imposter syndrome as like it used to paralyze and prevent me from and make me debilitated into the
mhm,
inability to make decisions and to never even try. And now what I've realized is that it still exists. Like when I
mhm.
launch a retreat, is it going to sell out? Are people going to come? Is it going to be valuable? What if the experience sucks? Like all of those thoughts going through my head. Same thing when I was doing coaching programs. I'd be sitting in front of 20 therapists ready to start like a 6-month program. I'm like, why are they here? I don't know what I'm talking about. But imposter syndrome no longer steers the car for me. It like rides along in the passenger seat next to
Right.
me, but it's not preventing me from making decisions. It's not preventing me from moving forward. It's not preventing me from pursuing my goals or creating things that I want to do. So I do think that the more you talk about it, the more you put it out to the world, the less power and control that it has over you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I'm giving a presentation or, speaking at an event, I always start with, I'm so excited to be here and I'm so nervous.
Yep.
Like I'll just tell on myself. I don't, I I think there's no, and I usually am. I mean, no matter what, like whether I'm posting a reel on sometimes people will say to me, like, how do you have so much confidence to put so much content, video content out on the internet? And I'll say, "Well, I don't. Like, I don't I'm no different." Like, I still look at it and I'm like, "Should I film it again? I don't know. Does my hair look funny?" But then you just choose to do it anyway,
Yep.
you know?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I've kind of adopted and endorsed the doubt yourself, do it anyway motto.
Yeah.
And I believe in that wholeheartedly. And I think like, it's crazy sitting here now because I had this major surgery in October and I came out of it like lost my voice, one of my vocal cords was paralyzed, all this stuff. And I was just like, am I ever going to be able to create anything ever again? And
Mm,
that was a really dark period for a month or two. And
that's
then I'm just like, damn, I just created and launched an international entrepreneurial summit, rented an entire medieval Italian village, and it has sold out in 3 days. And like, that's not something I ever thought I was going to say in my life.
yeah. Well, and, as you were telling that story, I was just thinking, like, God, if I lost my voice right now, that would be such a scary pivot. But as you were saying it, I was like, okay, well, there's like, you could do this and you could write the book and you could, and I was like, it'd be fine. Like
Yeah.
you would pivot. It would suck, but you would pivot, I mean, I'm really glad that didn't happen, obviously.
I
Um,
think the adapt and pivot is a part of the entrepreneurial journey, though.
yeah,
And you are going to meet resistance and barrier and struggle, and you're going to pivot and figure it out. And
definitely.
I hope everyone that's listening, can really take that in because I know when you question yourself, you want to give up. I know when you question yourself, you're going to start to feel a bit incompetent or insecure. We all do it,
Mhm.
regardless of our quote unquote success or following or anything. It exists because we're human. And the more humanness you can show, the more authenticity you can exhibit, and the more realness you can be. Because I do the same thing, Kelly. Like when
Yeah.
I'm talking to my grad school tomorrow about autistic ADHD experience. I'm like, I'm already nervous. I'm like, but I'm just talking about my life.
Yeah.
Still nervous. Um, so just naming it and just putting it out there, it really does help settle you down and allow you to just drop into your experience. And that's what I love about this is like, who the hell knows what I'm going to be doing in 5 years or what you're going to be doing in 5 years. But I believe wholeheartedly now that I will figure it out. And I think in the past that was not true.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what are you going to be doing in 5 years? Do you have a goal for you?
If I was to like sit at an actual job interview and they asked me what my 5-year plan was, I don't know what the answer would be. I think that, I think there's evolution here, like from private practice. I own a group practice now and we have the podcast and just released a second podcast and these retreat business and the coaching business. I don't know. I definitely want to write a book. It's been on the back burner for a long time. I want to start doing corporate wellness retreats for
Ooh, yeah.
leadership retreats. So I'm really trying to start to branch into that direction as well. What about you?
I have the same problem you do. I asked it of you, and then I immediately thought like, "Oh shit, now he's gonna ask it back."
I used to do a lot
Um,
of hiring and I always hated that question.
I know, me too. I mostly was asking you because I think I was like, "Oh, I wonder what his answer is," because I think in this space of kind of private practice coaching, consulting work, there's actually not that many of us out there. So I feel like there's not like the I don't feel like I have someone who's like, "Oh, they're 20 years ahead of me. Here's how they're doing it. I'll just copy that," you know?
Right. That's
Which is a huge blessing in disguise, but also terrifying because I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And so I don't really have an answer, but I guess I would say my main answer is I've been trying to think more strategically about social media and how I use my social media. So right now I'm very Instagram heavy. I'd say 70 or 80% of people who find me come through Instagram. And this is off topic, but like in the era of everything happening, whether it's with Twitter or TikTok banning potential or whatever, it's, being reliant on any one platform is scary. Um, so I guess my like longer term goal is diversification
Yeah.
in my business and making sure that I'm creating systems that are really sustainable for me. Um, and also I'm pregnant. So just continuing to make sure that as a mom, I'm not trading my time in for my income. And that's like been my biggest theme. So I don't have an answer. Like,
That's
but
honestly a better answer than mine.
I don't know because I still feel a little obtuse, right? Like, but I try to put it through those lenses of like, what are we doing to make sure that I'm creating my own ecosystem, not just like an Instagram ecosystem.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And for those of you listening, I do think trying not to put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, because you don't know what social media platforms are going to be popular in 5 years compared to now and what that looks like. So I do think, and that's another beautiful example, though, of the evolution of an entrepreneur and the ability to pivot and adapt. But it also sounds like Kelley from however many years ago compared to now, you said, am I ever going to get over the imposter syndrome like my dad has? It sounds like that answer says yes, because that answer says, like, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, and especially in social media world, my team and I were joking yesterday, like, should we just like go back to MySpace? Like we knew how to do MySpace really well. Or I've been trying out some of the new two platforms like Lemonade and Clapper, two new ones. And it's like I feel like me and all these like 18-year-olds. And so sometimes I feel like, what the hell am I doing here? But I do think there's like you have to be humble as an entrepreneur and be willing to look like you have no idea what you're doing, you
But
know?
when you do that and you admit that, that's like the most relatable stuff is just
Yeah.
being like, I don't think social media like followings want to see a person that's like perfectly put together and like
No.
because it's not real. So
Yeah.
I always just try to move into that space of like, how can I stay as aligned to my values and authenticity as possible?
Yeah.
And I think it's been a blessing because it allows people to feel comfortable to be themselves. And
Mhm.
still haven't figured out how to like message that and bottle that up because people are like, how do you do what you do? I'm like, I don't know. This is just who I am. I don't know how to say that.
I know it's like you want to tell people like be yourself, but it's hard. I mean, it's definitely there are times. I mean, I've made mistakes or I've said things on social media that like later I'm like, oh my God, why did I say it that way? Or, and sometimes if it's in podcast form or something, there's no going back, right? So, but um, yeah, I think it's all good. And I do think it's important to be uh just really honest and relatable. And I've been listening to that podcast, Am I a Bad Therapist? And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
on it too. And it was funny because when I was a guest on it, they basically have guests come on and tell like a mistake they've made in therapy with a client and like how they result. And like listening to it gives me anxiety. Listening to my being on it gave me anxiety. But I was like, but I want to hear it. I want to hear the mistakes that other therapists have made. Like I want to know, because those are the things we can relate to.
My mom was a therapist, and I know about all of the mistakes I made. So it's always informed how I try to move through the mental health space.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, and this would bring up a lot of imposter syndrome, I have never listened to a podcast episode in my entire life, and that includes a single one of my own. So
wait, go back. You've never listened to another podcast?
No, never ever.
You don't listen to like any other podcast?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Really?
You're not like on the Serial train, or like you got to listen to Serial at least. That's
my wife is listening to that all the time, and I assume that she's just trying to figure out ways to like bury my body somewhere and get away with it. But no, I've never listened to anything.
Serial's like an oldie, and you don't listen to your own episodes?
No, I don't want to hear my voice at all.
Who edits them?
My virtual assistant, Kelsey. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Appreciate you.
Oh my God, Kelsey, you're amazing. My team makes me go and listen to it. I hate doing it, but I do go listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not a bad practice. It's yeah, I have admitted that to some friends, but I don't think I've ever publicly admitted that. But yeah, it's
I get it.
It's one of those things, like once it's done for me, it's done. And I'm just like, it is gonna be what it's gonna be. And it's amazing that the response and following to this podcast has been so huge, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have anything to compare it to, because I don't know what the hell a podcast is supposed to sound like.
I think that's a good thing, though. I love Glennon Doyle Melton. Oh, she's a writer, and she talks about when she first started her blog, she gave herself a certain amount of time to write in the morning, and then at the end of that time, she had to click post. And I think about that with creating content of like, if I don't hit post shortly within creating it, I've got videos in my drafts for months, like, unless I just go ahead and do it. And, if you're not going to do it, who is? So just do it. That's amazing.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think I believe in imperfect action and building the plane as you fly it. So if I can channel that momentum and hit post, I know the opposite is exactly what you're saying, where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to put this out there. And so far, so good. And, just it's worked out, but I don't recommend that process for all of you that are listening. If you want to start a podcast, maybe you want to listen to yourself.
Probably a good idea to listen to a couple other
something else. I don't know.
I purposefully, before launching my private practice podcast, didn't listen to a single other private practice podcast for that reason. Because I was like, if I do, I'm going to hear how amazing they are, and I'm not going to do it. So, yeah.
I think that is just another example of imposter syndrome, is the comparison trap. And we can't get into that today, but
we could talk for 3 more hours, I think.
This has been great. I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to be coming on yours next week. But
yeah,
comparison trap is real, right? Like social media, I'm not getting as many likes, follows, subscribe, shares as someone else. Their content looks so spectacular, like their videos are so great, or whatever. And that can prevent you from actually launching your own thing. And I've said this openly before. Allison Perrier is a friend of mine, but she lives in Asheville, where I live.
Yeah.
I did not launch All Things Private Practice for years because I was like, but Allison lives here. Why would anyone hire me if she exists here?
And she's got amazing social media content.
Oh yeah. And we are very different personalities. Like,
of course. Yeah.
Any of that stuff. So she and I have joked about that, but yeah, it's just like we keep ourselves small for that reason. So all of you listening to this, I hope this was really helpful. And Kelley, this was fun. This is probably the longest podcast I've done in a long time.
Well, we're going to talk next week about retreats on my podcast, so I'm excited.
Cool. Well, tell the audience where they can find you so that they can follow you on Instagram and whatever else you've got coming out.
So it's easy. Basically, you can follow me everywhere on @theprivatepracticepro. So as I said, my goal is diversification, right? So I'm on you can follow me on Lemonade, and it's all the same handle, @theprivatepracticepro. Website is the same. Podcast is the same. And yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And to everyone listening to the All Things Private Practice podcast, new episodes are out every single week on all major platforms and YouTube. Like, download, subscribe, and share. Doubt yourself. Do it anyway. See you next week.